Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Happy birthday to you. Now you know it's somebody's birthday out there. Yeah. Y'all, we back with another reaction on the Zaire case. I told y'all regardless of what talk on, about, Nazaria will be implemented in my content some kind of way. Okay? Because I like what I'm doing because I miss doing lesson plans. But anywho, let me get into this now. Now, this is allegedly now. Now, I want to get down to the real nitty gritty. Let's get right here. I want to share something with y'all. So, we're going to comment on this. We're going to criticize. We're going to educate ourselves, okay? This case right here, boy, I tell you. Now, what I can't understand, y'all, and it ain't hard to understand, is this hotel. Okay, this hotel right here. And something about this hotel, it's mistaken. Did he come to the hotel? So I don't want to give it up what Miss Lisa Johnson gonna tell you all. She was the detective, which y'all already know. She was the detective because you've been paying attention to the case. Now, I'm gonna let her talk, and then I'm gonna come in because she said some things. If you don't pay attention, you're gonna miss what she said. Listen to this.
Lisa Johnson,
How are you employed?
Detroit Police Department.
And how long have you been employed by Detroit Police Department?
26 years.
And are you assigned to a specific unit or division?
Right now, homicide cold case.
Detective Johnson, can you pull that microphone down so that everyone can hear?
And were you working back in February of 2024 in homicide cold case?
Yes.
And did you get the chance to assist in the investigation of, at that time, missing Desire Harris?
I did.
And I want to take you to the location of 20,000 Harbor. You're assisting in the investigation, take you to that location.
Yes.
And what is that location?
Parkcrest Hotel.
And do you recall when about you went there?
Sometime in February.
Okay, and it's in 2004?
Yeah.
2024?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you went there, what is it that you did?
We spoke to the clerk that was on duty at the time, and we requested the ledger for January.
And did you receive anything from the ledger from January?
Yes, we did.
Okay, what is it that you received?
There was a sign-in sheet filled out by Mr. Butts.
Okay. And did you take a copy of that sign-in sheet?
Yes.
And Jeremy, may I propose you did it next?
Yes.
Henry Woods Marcus People's Proposed Exhibit 19. Can you tell me, do you recognize what it is I just handed you?
Yes.
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of the receipt that you received from the Parkcrest Inn as it relates to Mr. Butts?
Yes, it is.
And I move for the admission of People's Proposed Exhibit 19. No objection.
Okay, to be admitted as People's 19.
Thank you, Judge. And looking at that receipt, who is it that checked out a room?
Jarvis R. Butts.
And is there a address associated with that?
Yes, there is.
And without reading the numbers of the address, what street is that on?
Wilshire Drive.
And is there a phone number associated with that person?
Yes, there is.
And what's that phone number?
31.
Y'all remember when we mentioned Wilshire Drive? Remember that. Remember that. Because he made a phone call in that area too. Remember now.
3585-8719.
Okay. And what is the day that this hotel room was checked out?
January 9th, 2024.
Okay. And is there a room number that was checked out?
Yes, room 69.
Okay. And is there a time that was checked out?
Checked out at 12:30 p.m.
12:30 p.m. the next day. 12:30 p.m. the next day, y'all. Okay. So 12:30 the next day. So he spent the night at the hotel. Okay.
Did you do anything with this receipt once you received it?
Yes, we got the receipt and we forwarded it to Sergeant Jones.
And was this physical receipt itself placed on evidence?
Yes.
Nothing further direction.
Okay, cross.
Johnson, you said that when you went to the Park House Motel, you spoke with the clerk.
Yes.
Was that clerk the clerk that was there themselves on the night?
I don't believe so. We spoke with the clerk who forwarded us to the manager. We waited on the manager to come in. He brought the receipt out.
Did either the clerk or the manager that you spoke with indicated that they had any recollection of seeing Mr. Butts on the night?
No.
Okay. Did you spoke with anybody at the Park House Motel who did seem to indicate that they had familiarity with Mr. Butts?
Not for that particular night. A few people said they may have seen him prior, but not for sure.
Did you get the impression that he's kind of a frequent flyer there?
Somewhat, yes.
Did you notice when you were there if there were any cameras in the parking lot or around the door?
Yes, there's cameras.
There's cameras. Where are they located?
I can't be specific right now. I know there is
She got to know where the cameras are. She'll detect it.
cameras in the lobby, and there are some outside on the perimeter.
Okay.
So y'all, she told y'all there were cameras inside and on the outside of the perimeter. Okay. If you look right here, there go a camera right there. There go a camera right there. Y'all see it? Okay. Okay. Now, she answered y'all question. There are cameras inside and outside. It got to be some when you come in here because you don't want to get robbed and don't have a camera. And it got to be a camera up in here, up in there somewhere. Okay. So I want y'all to hear that. Now let's get into. Okay, let's get y'all thinking about. Just thinking about. Okay, let's get here. I want to come here because this is important. That closing argument. No. God dog it. What did I do with it? Oh my gosh. Hold on, y'all. Is this it? No, this is not my closing argument. Do I have it up? Hold on. I'll get to it. God dog it. I wanted y'all to hear this. This when the detective, the officer was recording him. But then I want to get to the closing because I don't agree with a lot what was said at the closing. So I'll look for the closing, okay? And I apologize, I don't have it right here.
I'm sorry. Did Mr. Butts give you a phone number that he used? Okay, if you recall what phone number it is that he gave.
A job, I think it's a game.
1 hour, 13 minutes, and 49 seconds.
Wait, hold up. Let me back it back. Hold up. I want to go back to here. Hold on. He said his day started because of his birthday in November. Why are we speaking on November, Jarvis? I want to be honest with what he said. He mentioned something about his birthday in November. Okay, let me put it right here. Maybe I misunderstood him. He said that he sent him. She sent. He said that Naziah sent him a text, but he didn't respond to it. Runs off a hopper. Okay, I just want to mention that to y'all. Okay, because it's the reason why I said that. But listen to this. Listen to this. And y'all, I promise I don't know why they got it turned down. I hope we don't have to go through that when okay, hold on. Here we go. I think I right here. I want y'all to get it. Hold on for a minute. Hold on, y'all. I had to sit here waiting on y'all. I want y'all to hear. This is what I want y'all to hear: the closing argument. And the reason why I want y'all to hear the closing argument.
Before I get to the real issue on the homicide charge, I'm gonna.
Okay, the reason why I want y'all to hear him and pay him some attention, the prosecutor and the defense. Listen to what he said. See, when you say homicide, you have a unalive body. Okay, when homicide is involved, there's a body. Remember what the lady said when I first showed y'all this video right here. Now listen to this.
A few preliminary matters. It is the people's intent to increase count 3, which is currently criminal sexual conduct second degree, to criminal sexual conduct first degree, person under 13, defendant 17 years of age or older. We have the defendant's birthday on the record, and that would be based on the testimony of the one minor witness that testified, as well as Cordell Wright's testimony. The minor witness testified that it happened at the old shop, and when Miss Ripley was asking questions, she
listen. I have to stop y'all. Listen what he said at the old hotel, at the old shop. Listen to what he's saying. Woo-wee. I'm sorry, y'all.
identified that as being the location. Cordell Wright testified back in November that they didn't move from that shop, which was at East Warren and Neff in the city of Detroit, until May or June, based on Nazia's birthday, which is in her medical records. At that time, she would have been 12 years old, and the minor witness testified clearly describing an act of penetration, specifically penis to anal opening. With respect to the criminal child sexually abusive activity, that would be based on the text messages as well as the minor's testimony as well. Combining those two things satisfies the elements of those charges. However, going to count one in murder in the first degree premeditated, I would like to go through and put some of the pieces together. And we are standing here today in court on January 9th, 2025, which is 1 year, almost to the minute, the last time Nazia was seen on a camera in the city of Detroit, which is on the screen now. The last time that she was seen was on January 9th, 2024 at 2:56, getting off of the bus at 3 Mile Drive in Cornwall and walking down Bedford. She was walking towards what she didn't know at the time would be Jarvis Butts and her ultimate murder by him. We take that moment in time and then go to Cordell Wright's testimony where he testified that they picked Nazia up on their way back to their shop at 9000 Connor, and they proceeded with her to that location. We have Jarvis Butts' sister's testimony, Tijuana Butts, who did say that she saw a young girl with a very descriptive and distinct jacket getting in and out of that car, the white Cadillac Escalade. That would have been before Jarvis, Cordell, and Nazia departed for Ypsilanti. We have Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony as to his cell phone locations based on cell tower information and the historical call detail records, which placed them consistent going out to Ypsilanti. And then we have Cordell's testimony getting them back to the shop. Talacia Moore also testified to seeing Nazia in Ypsilanti with Cordell and Jarvis. Cordell, as we know, testified that he had to get back to his house based on his tether hours by 9 p.m. And that is the last time that anyone who is not Jarvis Butts would see Nazia Harris alive. From the shop, we proceed out to the Park Crest Inn, where Jarvis Butts checked into a hotel at 9:30 p.m. And Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony corroborates this, placing his phone in the area of that 20,000 Harper address at around using the data that you see. Recapping January 9th, this is the last time that we have any sort of communication from Nazia. There was, if you look at those messages that Sergeant Jones went through and read, just between Nazia and Jarvis, there was consistent and constant communication up until January 9th. There's also no messages from Jarvis after Nazia goes missing on the 9th, looking for her, seeing where she is, trying to find her, trying to help, as anyone should do at that time, her family locate her. There's no messages to her phone, to that Text Now account from Jarvis Butts' phone. Her legal guardian and grandmother, Annette Harris, has not seen any social media posts. The OIC of the case, Sergeant Jones, has not seen anything for a total of 1 year now. The Lieutenant George Harris, who was involved in the investigation in the first month, didn't see anything that he saw from social media or Text Now after the 9th. Jarvis Butts on the 9th, we know, borrowed Latricia Johnson's car overnight, which was unusual. He borrowed that and then again borrowed it on the 10th or 11th. We know that Nazia's glasses were found in that car sometime after the 10th or 11th when Latricia Johnson was at that shop and Jarvis Butts snatches them out of her hand. From the Parkcrest Inn and from January 9th, we go out to 7 Mile and Burke. This is by far the most important location in this case because we know that the defendant spent from 11:40 p.m. on the 10th to 1:34 a.m., nearly 2 hours in that area, in that wooded area where the Rouge River runs through. And to give, this is from the slideshow of the scene photos that were taken at 7 Mile and Burke. This is the area where it's the people's theory Jarvis Butts did at least one of two things. Either killed Nazia at 7 Mile and Burke, but at the very least, dumped her body in this location. We know this because of the evidence that was found there, specifically the black hoodie, which you see in this photo here, as well as the pink bodysuit and the shoes that we confirmed or that are hers based on the picture that the OIC received from her brother's sweater, or the end of the arms of that sweater is there with very strong support, and of course Nazia's DNA is there as well. And when you look at that sweater, specific PowerPoint photos that John Green took and put together, we can see that there is a lot of markings. There are 15 phenol positive stain markings on this sweater. This is just the front of that sweater. And of course, the court paid attention and saw the markings or the damage to the hood, that it is the people's theory would have been stab wounds or something to that effect that happened when Jarvis Butts murdered Nazia Harris. We also have to look, and it goes to the premeditation element as well as everything he did before, at Jarvis Butts' actions, specifically what he did to attempt to conceal or cover up his role in the murder of Nazia Harris. First, we have the glasses that he made sure he grabbed directly from Latricia Johnson's hands when shown, that are consistent with the glasses he had in the photo from the 9th when she was in school. We have the jail call to Cordell Wright to get that phone of his out of Miss Davis's car and into someone else's possession, which he testified he tried to do, but was ultimately unsuccessful. And then Sergeant Jones testified that the ultimate did recover that phone from Miss Davis's car. There's the phone call to Latricia Johnson, which was played when she was testifying, saying, get anything he touched clean anything which is important because when you combine her testimony of when Jarvis Butts took her car, those 2 times on the 9th, 10th, and then either the next day or that same day, it's important because that car is the car that he transported Nazia Harris out to 7 Mile and Burke to either dump her body or to murder and then dump her body there. And we can go through all of the lies that Jarvis Butts told any detective or any officer that he testified to, but in highlighting those, he denies to Detective Mays that he was with Nazia at all or had talked to Nazia at all on the 9th, denies ever picking her up, denies to, even when confronted with the January 9th messages, he said that it wasn't him initially. Obviously, we heard in the subsequent interviews, specifically on June 1st with the OIC, he came off of that. He told Shannon Harris that Nazia texted him on the 9th. She says that he never did that. And we have some of their messages in the record as well. He denies going to a hotel and denies going to a hotel with Nazia Harris and denies having any sort of sexual relationship with Nazia, even though the text now messages completely prove that that is an absolute lie. We also have his motive. We know from Sergeant Jones that he was going to be going into custody supposedly on January 9th for until roughly December, I believe, is what Sergeant Jones testified to. We know that that date was adjourned because he said in his interview that he had a legal issue. He said it was out in Clinton Township, but I submit to this court that that's not the legal issue he was talking about. He was talking about the legal issue he would have had if Nazia had been left alive. he had to make sure that when he was in custody, that she was not going to give birth to any child of his. That's his motive in this case. That's why that's January 9th. The sentencing date was adjourned to February 7th so he could take care of that potential legal issue. He was being told consistently by Nizaya throughout the months that she might be pregnant, and then on 11/27, she says to him that it's hard to do this gym shit with this baby. Less than a week or 2 weeks later, he's searching on Google how to abort a baby, how to not just abort a baby or hit abortion, but how to do it at home, how to get rid of that without any medical professional or any responsible mandated reporter knowing about it. We clearly have that motive. And obviously, Judge, one of the big issues in this case is proving that Nizaya Harris is dead without having a body. On January 9th, she vanished off the face of the earth. There is absolutely no evidence after the 9th that she was alive, that she was sending messages to anyone. Her, again, legal guardian had not seen her since the 9th. No one else, officers, friends, family have seen her since the 9th. There's no social media post reviewed by any officer to this day that would indicate she was alive. There's no messages, no further messages on text now after the 9th. There is a full and complete stop of any activity that would indicate she was alive. And Judge, I submit to this court that if that were the evidence that we had at this point, that would be enough at this point for a probable cause of determination to show that she is in fact deceased today. However, there is more than that. Her hoodie found at 7 Mile and Berg, which we just saw a photo of, has Jarvis Butts' DNA on it and Nizaya Harris' DNA on it, and it is covered in blood, indicating that something traumatic happened to her. And all the other evidence shows that something traumatic happened to her at the hands of Jarvis Butts. And then we go back to his motive. Was told by Nizaya that she was pregnant, searched all of the home abortion procedures, and was going to go into the Wayne County Jail until December, which we just passed, of 2024. Judge, I submit to this court that the evidence that you have heard over the last 4 days proves not only that Nizaya Harris is currently deceased, but also that she was murdered by the defendant, who had plenty of motive to do so, had plenty of opportunity to do so, and he did that. And I will note that the defendant in this case, Jarvis Butts, does not get a break because he successfully hid her body. The evidence to a probable cause determination, which the question is she probably dead, and did the defendant probably do that? Both questions are answered with a yes, based on all of the evidence that you have seen. I would reserve any further argument for rebuttal.
I like them.
He did a good job.
You have seen. I would reserve any further argument for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Sorry.
I know how well aware the court is that we have a very serious task here. We've been here for 4 days, and at this point, we have to look critically at what we've heard and what we've seen over the last 4 days and determine if there's enough evidence by a probable cause standard that Mr. Butts committed premeditated first-degree murder. And if you look critically at what the evidence is and the lack of connection between these pieces of alleged evidence, there is not even by a probable cause standard. To bind over on premeditated first-degree murder, there has to be sufficient facts or evidence to show by a probable cause standard that each of the elements of premeditated murder in the first degree were committed. First, there's got to be a death. There has to be evidence that that the defendant caused the death of the deceased, that some action that he made or did caused that person's death, that there was an intent to kill, that the intent to kill was premeditated, and that it was deliberate. And here there is not enough evidence, even by a probable cause standard, that Jarvis Butts caused the death of Nizaya Harris. There's been no testimony of any eyewitness stating that they saw Jarvis Butts doing any act that could have caused Uzziah Harris's death. There's been no testimony of any eyewitness that they saw Jarvis Butts doing anything in preparation of doing something that could have caused her death. And there's been no admission of Mr. Butts to support that element. There's not probable cause to believe that Mr. Butts had an intent to kill Uzziah Harris, nor that he premeditated her death. There's no evidence of any threats made by Mr. Butts to Uzziah. There's no evidence of any threats to a third party that he was going to do. He had a problem that he had to take care of. The issue or the statement was he had a legal matter. And Davis testified that she was aware of an issue that he had in Clinton Township, and that she was the one that was driving him around to court. There's no testimony that he took any specific action in a deliberation to kill her, or that in killing her. There's Google searches about legal ways to abort a child, not how to kill somebody or dispose of a body. There's no evidence that he did anything related to the Google searches. There's no receipts of purchases or anything like that. And these text messages were 2 weeks after they were, I believe, December 9th and 10th, which was, I believe, 2 weeks or 13 days from 11/27/23, which is the text message about gym class. And then there's this kind of cryptic text message in between that says, "It healed." That to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that he believed she was pregnant. There's no evidence of a pregnancy. We have medical records until, I believe it's October of 2023, that don't indicate a pregnancy, that she had been to the doctor in September when she originally texts or messages Mr. Butts and says she thinks that she's pregnant. There's no evidence of a pregnancy. She went to the doctor. We heard from both her guardian, her grandmother, and her aunt, Shannon Harris, who lived with her. No testimony from either of them that they suspected that she was pregnant, that there was any medical issues that they had to take care of because that would have caused them to think that she was pregnant. There was an insinuation, well, was she wearing baggy clothing? Was she wearing bigger clothing? There was no testimony that they had to go out and buy new clothes for her because her clothes didn't fit, or that she started wearing baggy clothing. She was wearing denim pants on the day that she disappeared, and there's no testimony that those were not pants that she had recently bought because she didn't fit into the clothing that she previously had. There's no evidence of any kind of plan. There's no messaging between Mr. Butts and Ms. Harris that indicates an escalation of animosity between the two of them. In fact, he essentially kind of starts to disengage. And so there's no written evidence that he had any kind of plan or any animosity toward her at that point. Our submission would be that he understood at that point that she wasn't pregnant and was disengaging. Let's talk about what we did see. So we know that Uzziah got on her school bus around 2:45 on the 9th. She got off the bus a few minutes later, and then she was seen walking up Bedford. She was wearing at that point light color blue jeans, a black hoodie, and then a colorful coat with fur around the hood. There's some insinuation that somehow there was a plan that she would meet up with Mr. Butts, but the testimony of Mr. Wright was that they were driving around that afternoon back and forth to various auto parts stores, and I believe that they, in fact, had to go back to one kind of unplanned because they either missed something or there was an issue. And so to say that somehow Mr. Butts would have known that she would have been on that street at that specific time and that they would have been there at a specific time is quite a leap, considering they didn't know where they were going to be when, because they were doing all this driving around back and forth to various stores. We put Uzziah and Mr. Butts auto shop later that afternoon, and then in Ypsilanti with Mr. Butts and Cordell Wright, and Mr. Wright puts her back at the shop later that evening. But then we hear from Sergeant O'Rourke, who did all the cell phone mapping, that at 9 p.m., Miss was actually at 13662 Wilshire, which is his home, where Angel Leonard lives, and where they have kids. So
Wilshire is over there with Miss Angel. Oh, but see, even though Wilshire is up there with Miss Angel, let me hold on, y'all. I was doing something. I put the wrong address in. That ain't okay. Angel live up here. Angel stay up here. She stayed near Parkcrest. Miss Angel. Okay, let's continue, y'all. Let's continue. It's getting good. Mm, mm, mm. Thank you, lady. I didn't even hear you when you said that the first time. Hold on, y'all.
Kids. So does I go back with him to that house?
Hmm.
And then at
That's
9:30
what I
is
asked.
when he checks into the Park Crest Motel. Now, we don't know who was with him there, but there is no evidence that Naziah was ever there. They searched it. They took DNA. They took.
I asked y'all the same thing. Was Naziah out at Wilshire? Sure. I asked y'all that because he called Angel, the girl with the car. He called her, but he ended up at the hotel. What was Naziah?
Clippings of various things. They swabbed the shower drain, and there's no evidence that she was ever in that room. We did hear testimony that the Park Crest is a known place where Mr. Butts frequents and takes various lady friends for a rendezvous. It's much more possible and plausible that he took one of his lady friends there, than somebody who he was going to kill, right? He's going to a place where they know him. He's a frequent flyer there. And is he going to take somebody there where he would later, before he was going to kill them? That makes no sense. That is not logical.
It don't make sense.
We heard then that after Mr. Butts left Parkcrest Motel, he went to 4 Alexandrine, which is Midtown, so kind of across town, and that's where his other girlfriend, Nasheen Rushing, lives. So did he take Naziah with him there to see Miss Rushing? And he stays there for a while, I think, according to Sergeant O'Rourke's mapping. And then we hear that he is at 7 Mile and Berg on January the 10th at 11:40 p.m. for over an hour. That's almost 24 hours from when he initially, it's beyond 24 hours from when he initially is with Naziah, or when he's last with Naya. And so it's illogical to think that he was driving around with Naziah, visiting all of his girlfriends.
That's what I'm
Or if he had
tripping
done
off
something
of.
to her previously, that she was in the car with him while he did that. And in fact, they took a cadaver dog around the car and didn't find anything. And they tested the vehicles, all of his vehicles, every car that.
But y'all, to be honest with y'all, that defense attorney made sense. What she's saying made sense. So if he didn't do it that way, he had to have a way to do it. I had somebody else to do it, or he could have had it. It's strange.
He drove for DNA, for any sign that Naziah had been in there, and they found nothing. And the call to Miss Johnson asking her to wipe down the Sentra that she used that he had borrowed, it's kind of irrelevant because she testified that she didn't do it. That she did nothing based on what he called to say, and they still didn't. Nothing was found. We heard that was found. We didn't hear any testimony that anybody saw Naziah wearing this pink jumpsuit. She's not seen wearing it in any video. I don't believe that anybody even identified it as being hers. I don't believe there's any testimony from either Annette Harris or Shannon Harris stating, yes, we recognize that pink jumpsuit. That's something that Naziah wears. When did she have it? There was one blood stain on that jumpsuit. And the testimony from the forensic analyst, Rion Green, was that it was such a small stain once and couldn't do any follow-up testing or confirmatory testing because she was afraid they were going to consume the sample. There was also no statistically significant support for finding Mr. Butt's DNA on that stain sample from the pink jumpsuit. And there was no statistically significant probability that his DNA was on the jumpsuit at all, that he had had any contact with the jumpsuit. And they took a lot of swabs of that jumpsuit. I believe the number was that forensic analyst Anderson testified to, that it was 24 trillion times more likely to have originated from two unrelated unknown contributors than Jarvis Butts. And we heard about the black hoodie. And that black hoodie was significantly more weathered than the pink jumpsuit. We heard about that from the Border Patrol agent Barnes and other folks that came into contact with that sweatshirt, that it looked like it had been out in the weather much longer. And we don't have an explanation for that, but those appear to be tears in the top of the hood. They don't appear to be stab wounds, and they certainly don't appear to be bullet holes. There's weak support for conclusion that Mr. Butts was a contributor to the stain and the swabs of the black hoodie. The only real support for any DNA on the black hoodie was on the non-stained part. And there's testimony that Ms. Harris was wearing that hoodie on the 9th, that she was in Mr. Butts' Escalade when he and Mr. Wright picked her up after seeing her walking down Harper, that they were in the car driving in up to Ypsilanti. And so the possibility that his DNA got on this non-stained part of the black hoodie. I do any.
Sorry about that, girl.
It's not evidence of premeditated murder in the context of all of the ways that we heard somebody's DNA can get on a piece of clothing. And I kind of talked about this, but we heard testimony that Mr. Butts drove both a Cadillac Escalade and a Nissan Sentra on January 9th and January 10th. There's a lot of pieces of those cars that were tested. Trunk carpet from various areas, both cars, the driver's floor mat, the driver's seat, the door handle, trunk speakers, the trunk frame. All of those things were swabbed for blood, and nothing was found.
Okay.
We heard about a school ID card that belonged to Naziah. We heard Valerie Smith testify that she noticed it at some point in February, maybe a month or so after Naziah was last seen. And she decided to pick it up 2.5 weeks after she first spotted it. But she was pretty clear that she only noticed it about 2.5 or about 2 weeks before, but that she looked at it every single day. Seemingly, if it had been there before then, she would have noticed it. When did it get there? We don't know. There was no evidence. There's no testimony as to that. And there was no other evidence found in Mile and Greenfield area, and there's no evidence that Mr. Butts was there. About the medical records, but all they tell us is that Naziah Harris didn't have a life-threatening condition as of October 24th. They don't tell us anything about her physical condition between the 24th and the 9th, and they don't tell us that she was pregnant. They're just not relevant, except for the fact, I guess, that they don't tell us that she was pregnant, and she was there on September the 27th, according to her text messages. What we haven't heard in the last 3-4 days is anything about a murder weapon. We've heard that they collected guns, but we don't know if any of them actually operated, and they tested them for DNA, and there was nothing found. When did those guns get taken from a house? When did they get put back, if any of them had been used? And, I mean, we just simply don't have any evidence as to whether they were even touched by Mr. Butts. But certainly there was no DNA from Ms. Harris on them, and if one was to use a gun to bludgeon somebody enough where they break the skin and bleed, there's going to be DNA on that gun. If somebody is shot at close range by a gun, there's likely to be DNA on that gun. They found no DNA on a gun. There was initially testimony about all these knives that were found, and then when Mr. Riggins did a little bit of digging, well, one of them was a butter knife, one of them was rusted and under a seat and looked like it had been there forever. There's only one knife that they were actually interested in. They sent it for testing, and there was nothing on it. And we know that they can test for blood even if something has been wiped clean, because they do that, and in fact, they did that in this case. They found no blood on anything that the prosecution is positing could have been a murder weapon. Motive is not an element of premeditated homicide. There's evidence that Mr. Buds and Naziah had a sexual relationship. And we are, at this point, not contesting the bind over on those counts. That would explain why Mr. Buds would not want to be honest about why he was with Naziah Harris. That would be enough to make somebody want to lie about their whereabouts or their connection to somebody. There's no evidence that it went any further than that for him. No evidence that he had been confronted by anybody about a sexual assault. No evidence that he was being threatened by Naziah to expose him or get him in trouble if he didn't do something that she wanted him to do. By the time January 9th rolled around, they weren't really speaking that much. She was, in those text messages that we heard, getting frustrated with him for ignoring her. But never once did she say, well, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to tell everybody what we've been doing. And so there's a complete lack of any motive for him to respond in that way. And I would point the court to a case, it's called People v. Fisher, and it's 193 Mishap 284. It's a 1992 case, and I've got copies. Got it. This court one. And I point the court to this case because it's a case where homicide was charged and no body was found. A woman named Joyce Fisher was killed, and I believe it was 8 years after her death.
When you list on apartments.com.
Was killed, and I believe it was 8 years after her death, her husband was charged. He was convicted, and ultimately the appellate court reversed the conviction because the evidence was insufficient to submit the case to a jury. And so that was the error. And kind of the facts briefly are that Mr. and Mrs. Fisher were in the process of divorcing. It was a pretty contentious relationship. There had been lots of reports that he had been physically abusive to her. And she had even testified that he had threatened to kill her in mid-January of 1978, approximately 3 months before she disappeared. In April of 1978, apparently they were out together, they had lunch, and he was the last person to see her. After that, she disappeared. Now, there was no substantial testimony in that trial regarding her reliability, her long or short-term plans, that she had children, that she was devoted to them, and that she wouldn't have any reason to run away or leave. And so that gave rise to an inference that she was deceased. The prosecutor in that case offered no evidence of an act that resulted in Joyce Fisher's death. And the court previously has held that the victim's body, while it's not necessary to establish corpus delicti, there has to be something more. There has to be, in this case, either an admission or confession, physical evidence, or some kind of witness testimony. In that case, there was no physical evidence, such as bloodstains or weapon, linking the defendant to Joyce's death. He did not admit that he killed her, although the prosecutor offered equivocal statements there, that he seemed to say, well, things didn't happen quite that way, and where it made it sound like maybe he did have something or some knowledge. The prosecutor there presented lots of evidence of defendant's motive and opportunity to kill her, but noted that those are not elements of the crime. And inferences, the court says, may not be based on evidence that is uncertain or speculative, or merely raises a conjecture or a possibility. And they said, in that case, the evidence did not rise above the level of conjecture. And that's what we have here. We have conjecture.
She did
We have a
good.
lot of pieces of supposed evidence, but we have no connection. They don't connect to each other. They're puzzle pieces. When you put them together, there's no picture. There is no big picture because there is no act that can be testified to that Mr. Bunce did, and there's nothing to support that act. There's no evidence that he had a gun and used it. There's no evidence that he had a knife and used it. In fact, the evidence that the prosecutor put forward disputes those theories. The idea that Mr. Bunce was in some cover-up, the issue of his phone, I think was pretty well cleared up by Ms. Davis when she testified to the idea that for as long as she's known him, he's never wanted her to look at his phone. And mostly because he's been dealing with who knows how many other women. And that she had tried pretty much everything she could think of to get in that phone well before any of these allegations came about, and that she's never been able to. And so it makes sense that he would not want her to get in that phone, especially if he assumed he was coming home and wanted to have.
I don't think she should have said that, y'all.
Serving his sentence in the Wayne County Jail, that she not know that she was not the only female he was dealing with.
I don't think she should have had that part.
We acknowledge that probable cause is a low standard, but it isn't just limited to whether the prosecution has presented significant or sufficient evidence on each element of the offense, which we submit they have not. They also must determine that there's a reasonable ground of suspicion supported by circumstances sufficiently strong to warrant a cautious person to believe the accused is guilty. That definition of probable cause, or that characterization, comes from People v. Carter, which is 250 Mishap 510. And so you have to have both elements of the crime met, and also those elements have to be met by evidence that is sufficiently strong to believe that it is relevant, that it actually proves what it is saying that it proves. And here we have conjecture, we have speculation, we have supposition, and we have somebody who he did have.
Never pay for your
All
internet.
right, y'all. I skipped her, but anyway, y'all, what y'all think? Y'all tell me what y'all think down in the chat. Y'all been doing an awesome job by leaving your reaction, and your reaction as a citizen of the United States is very important in this case right here. Now, I think that the defense attorney did an awesome job, and I think that the prosecutor did an awesome job. So put yourself as a jury and a juror, and you make that decision. Y'all like, share, and subscribe. Love y'all. I love y'all. Make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, that really tell me how much you really care. I love y'all. I'm out of here.